June 13th, 2024 meeting of the Webster Groves Board of Adjustment to order. Tom, would you please call the roll?
John Burris here, Mel Wilson
Here.
Debbie Solomon,
Here.
and Tom Wallace, and DJ McCall will be able to be here tonight.
In addition to the four board members, we have the acting city attorney, Peter Buntrager, and the director of planning and development, Mara Perry, here tonight. As Tom pointed out, there's only 4 members. The rules or the state statute requires that in order for your variance to be granted, you have to have 4 affirmative votes, which means that all the board members here tonight would need to vote in favor of your variance for it to be recorded, for it to be approved. You can choose either now to postpone to the July meeting, which right now the date is a little bit up in the air. Or we can hear your request and we'll ask you questions, but before the board goes into executive session for board discussion and to make a decision, you would have to decide if you want to go ahead. If your variance is denied, you can't come back for a year without a substantial change. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we do have 4 items on our docket this evening, and we will take each one separately. So the order of presentation will be that the city staff will present testimony regarding the facts of the request. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to present their request to the board and answer questions. Then we will ask for anyone who's in the audience or online who is in favor will have the opportunity to speak, and anyone who is opposed have the opportunity to speak. These proceedings are recorded, and we ask you to come to the podium to speak and to speak one at a time. Like I said, we will vote on your application tonight unless you choose to opt out, because there's only four members here this evening. And please try not to be redundant or repetitive in your comments. Tom, would you please read the powers relative to variances?
When by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property as of September 20th, 1956, or by reason of exceptional topographical conditions or other extraordinary or exceptional situation or condition of a specific piece of property, which condition is not generally prevalent in the neighborhood, the strict application of the area regulations of this zoning code would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties to or exceptional and undue hardship upon the owner of such property. The board is hereby empowered to authorize upon an appeal related to such property a variation from such strict application so as to relieve such difficulties or hardships.
Thank you. Would you please read docket 2418? Oh, excuse me.
Actually, we're going to postpone
Okay,
till July.
okay.
The only reason why we were talking about date is trying to potentially push it up based on the fact that we had to have this last minute issue. And so if we can potentially bring it up forward, we're going to try to do that. I'm gonna have to work with everybody and vacation schedules and all kinds of stuff, but we will work on a date. We only have 1 petition for July that came in new. So we'll try to work between the 2 of them and try to get a good date that hopefully doesn't wait the full month.
So the date has not been set yet?
Date has not been set yet.
Okay,
And I'll work on that as soon as I can, probably tomorrow, just to see who I have available in order to get that going.
okay. Can my client appear in Zoom for that meeting as well?
Yes, definitely,
Okay,
definitely.
all right.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so in case you missed that, docket 2418 for the property at 524 Bacon Avenue has requested postponement, so they will not be heard tonight. So Tom, would you please read docket 2419?
Yes, docket 2419, a petition submitted by Robert Soroti and Company Architects on behalf of David and Suzanne Bentelli for an application for variance from section 53.043B2A of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 28.59 feet from the required 78.58 foot south front yard setback in order to build a new single-family dwelling 50 feet from the south front property line. The property is located at 11 Old Westbury Lane within the A1 20,000 square foot resident district.
Thank you. Mr. Bontrager?
Before presenting witness testimony, we would ask that exhibits 1 through 8 as listed on the screen, including this PowerPoint, be submitted as part of the record.
Thank you.
We would call Mara Perry.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Mara Perry.
Are you employed by the city?
Yes, I am.
In what?
Director of Planning and Development
What are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 11 Old Westbury Lane?
Yes, I am.
Is this within the city limits?
Yes, it is.
In which zoning district is this property located?
It's in the A1 20,000 square foot residence district.
What is the applicant's request in docket number 2419?
The applicant's requesting a variance of 28.59 feet from the required 78.59 foot south front yard setback in order to build a new single-family dwelling 50 feet from the south front property line.
Can you describe, which municipal code sections apply to this request?
So the code section is 53.043 A1 dimensional regulations. Front yard setback, item 2, for lots that have no recorded front yard setback and are located on a block occupied with 2 or more buildings, then the minimum front yard setback shall be established in the following manner. Item A, if the lot or the existing building in question is located within 100 feet of a building on either side, the depth of the front yard for that lot or existing building shall be the average of the front setbacks of these 2 adjacent buildings. If the average creates a setback that is more than 25% of the depth of the lot in question, the setback will be established by the adjacent building located closest to the right-of-way.
Can you explain the existing conditions of this property?
Yes. So I'm going to use the applicant's Exhibit A that you can see outlined in red. This is the Old Westbury subdivision. In yellow, they've highlighted all the streets, which are private streets. And as you can see, the lots are varied in the configuration of how those lots were established based on this winding and meandering roadway that goes through the subdivision. The lot in question has a blue star on it. And so you can see it located towards the southern edge of the subdivision, but on the north side of the street. In this exhibit, you'll see this is the survey of the property. And in order for them to, per the code, survey the closest corner of the houses on either side, the closest corner of the house to the west is 78.59 feet. The closest corner of the house to the right is 100.84 feet. When you average the 2 of them, because that setback creates a setback for the front that is more than 25% the depth of the lot, you then have to use the property that is closest to the roadway, which is the one that's 78.59 feet. You can see here outlined in green, the required setback based on that house that is to the west, which would be the 78.59 feet. The requested setback is a 50-foot setback. Please note in your packets, there is an exhibit from the subdivision trustees that there are indentures for this subdivision, but that weren't recorded with the plat that establish a 50-foot front yard setback for this particular subdivision. But obviously, as a city, we don't uphold those indentures, but they did submit a letter in recommendation of approval of this particular variance. For us as staff, we do not have another code section that says, well, if the property to the west also creates a setback that's more than 25% the depth of the lot, we don't have anything else to work with. Our code does have a 30-foot front yard setback when you don't have properties within a certain distance on either side. But the establishment of the dimension is from the edge of the property line to the house, not from like the existing house to another house. And so in this case, it requires that setback of the 78.59 feet. So the 50-foot is what is being requested. You can see because of the depth of the rear yard and the side yards, and because of the configuration of this lot with that swooping front yard, based on the location of that private street, it would push the entire house really far back into the very, very, very back of the lot. In your package, you'll see an Exhibit D, which has some proposed elevations of the house. But I, at this point, have nothing further to add.
Does anyone have any questions for Mara?
So because the distances create that less than 25%, it then defaults to the one that's closer?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. But we don't have another default of
Right.
if the one closer still creates something that's more than 25%, here's another option.
Are there any other variances in this neighborhood or this zone district?
I did not look for any variances in this particular district. Many of the houses have been established for quite a long period of time.
Any other questions?
No, none this time.
Who's here tonight for docket 2419? Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Robert Sroat with Sroat and Company Architects. I also wanted to mention that there are several properties in this subdivision that have setbacks that are 50 feet or less. But that's also in one of our exhibits. We identify those properties. There are 1, 2, 3, 7 other properties that have a 50-foot setback or less.
So would you please outline what you feel is the hardship that this board must consider and grant, and if we would grant your hardship, the request?
Yeah, so I think the hardship is the exceptional shape of the property due to the irregular shape of the street. And the way I understand the street was laid out was to avoid some neighboring sinkholes. So I think that has an impact on the way that the street is designed, and there is a specific sinkhole to the neighbors on the neighbor's house to the west. And I believe that helped shape some of the abnormal street boundaries in the subdivision. So the variance, the hardship is really the exceptional shape of the street and the property in relation to the neighbor's setbacks. That creates that hardship for us. And really restricts the buildable area on the lot.
Any other questions for the petitioner's representative?
Sure.
So there's not necessarily a scenario where the house could rotate and fall within the setback line?
We've played around with that. I mean, we think in order to have the best presentation on the lot and make the most sense relative to the other homes in the subdivision, it needs to present the way that it does toward the front of the lot. We have rotated it in different ways, and it does create just an odd location on the site and an odd presentation of the home in general.
Any other questions?
None here.
Have there
Okay.
been discussions with any of the neighbors about that setback?
The trustees have approved the orientation and the setback of the property.
And I mean, specific, because I realize the trustees are neighbors in that sense that they'll live on those streets, but
Yes.
those that are immediately around, have they indicated approval of any kind?
So Susan, the homeowners currently live in the same subdivision, on, is it 18?
You can come up, but you'll have to be sworn. You need to come to the podium. Okay. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you. And you are Susan?
I'm Susan Bentley, and so
Just
we have.
Speaking to the
I'm sorry.
microphone.
So we have lived at 18 Old Westbury for almost 39 years. And so our neighbors to the west at 11 will be the people right across the street from us right now. And then the people on the other side, we've known forever as well. And so the house at 11 has just been kind of a dead, sad house for a long time. And they're really pretty excited about this and very supportive. So we've got a number of things going on in terms of the house has a septic tank. We've got to figure out what we're going to do with the sewer district. It's going to involve, and everyone has been very cooperative. So we've had a lot of conversations. The neighborhood has obviously been very curious about what's going on. And these are our longtime neighbors. The other thing I would mention in terms of the configuration of the house and the lot, we love our house. I'm really sad to leave my house at number 18, but the bedrooms are upstairs, and we have a son with cerebral palsy who lives with us. And so our plan is not only to have a house for aging boomers, but a permanent house for Drew when we're gone in this neighborhood where he does lawns, he moves garbage cans for people, he does snow and ice for people. So very neighborly, very supportive, and so far so good on that front.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the homeowner while she's up here? Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2419? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition of 2419? Hearing none and seeing none, you can sit down, sir. Are we ready to move to executive session? Could we have a motion regarding docket 2419 so we could start the discussion?
I move that we grant the variance presented in docket 2419 for a variance of 28.59 feet from the required 78.59 front yard setback.
Okay, I'm sorry, before we get a second, do you want to go ahead with the board vote on this? Okay. Can we have a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay. Well, I think that, that whole idea of curvilinear streets, it sounds good, but sometimes it can cause some weirdness. And I think what we have here is sort of a unique hardship created by the curvilinear nature of Old Westbury Lane in front of lot 11.
Yeah. I would add too, to what you said, that the shape of this property, and it really narrows down toward the back.
Right.
And I don't know technically if this has two front yards, but it certainly is on a curvature, which creates a unique piece of property here, especially as it tapers back to the back. So, and all the houses, I had never been back there, and all the houses in that, I was impressed. It was, and so all houses are, I'll just say larger or big houses. And it appears to me that the proposal here is to put another decent sized house in an area where one can be logically constructed. So
I would say also that I don't think that the regulations anticipated a situation like this where the defaulting to the setback closer to the street could also be more than 25% the depth of the lot. So I think that's unusual as well.
Any other board comments?
I'll just offer the comment that while I'm inclined to support the motion, I do think that it would have been interesting to see a design that actually conformed to the setbacks and what that would have looked like in a manner that would generate the kind of curb appeal that the homeowner as well as the neighbors could be proud of.
Are we ready for the vote?
Sure.
All in favor of docket 2419, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Would you please poll the board, Tom?
Yes, John Burse,
Aye.
Mel Wilson,
Aye.
Debbie Sahlberg,
Aye.
and Tom Walsh votes aye.
Your variance has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you very much. Would you please read docket 2420?
Yes, docket 2420, an application submitted by Lakeside Renovation and Design on behalf of William Hood for an application for variance from section 53.073 C.2 of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant's requesting a variance of 3 feet from the required 4-foot front north side yard setback in order to reconstruct a screen porch addition 1 foot from the north side property line on the rear of the house. The property is located at 518 Cornelia Avenue within the A4 7,500 foot square resident district.
Mr. Bunting?
Yes, before testimony, I would ask that exhibits 1 through 7 listed in front of you, including the PowerPoint which will be used during testimony, be included in the record of this hearing. We would call Mara Perry to testify.
Go ahead.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Mara Perry?
Are you employed by the city of Webster?
Yes, I am.
In what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
What are your duties?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 518 Cornelia Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Is that property within city limits?
Yes, it is.
In which zoning district is that property located?
It's in the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
What is the applicant's request in docket number 2420?
The applicant's requesting a variance of 3 feet from the required 4-foot north side yard setback in order to reconstruct a screen porch addition 1 foot from the north side property line on the rear of the house.
And which municipal code sections apply to this request?
So the code section's 53.073. It's C, side yard setback. The minimum side yard setback shall be established in the following manner. Item number 2, residential structures existing as of September 20th, 1956, which are closer to the side property line than 6 feet, may be enlarged provided any addition is no closer to the side property line than 10% of the lot width at the front yard setback.
Can you explain the existing condition of the property?
Yes, so the property is only 40 feet wide, and the existing house currently sits at its closest point on the northern side, only 1 foot away from the property line. The house was built in 1923, and you can see the house outlined in sort of an orangey yellow here that excludes the front porch and the back deck. You'll see here highlighted in blue, I'm sorry, it's the back patio, highlighted in blue, the addition that's on the back of the house that they would like to reconstruct. You can see here that it sits just 1 foot away from the side property line. The side yard setback is established based on the width of that lot, so it's only a 4-foot setback versus a 6-foot setback. But currently, the existing back screen porch is located only 1 foot away from the side yard. So you can see here the screen replacement location. There is an existing stairwell that goes down, as well as you can see in the photo, sorry, the photo is small on the page, but there's a set of stairs that go down, as well as a set of stairs that go up. And then behind that screen porch, there is both a door and a window. So here is the drawing, the location that they're proposing that screen porch to be rebuilt, the 1 foot setback along the edge of matching the edge of the house, and the approximate location of where the 4-foot setback would be. Same thing here, stairwell going down, steps going up into the screen porch, You can see the door and the window on the existing house that are behind. So the configuration would impact the rear of the house and the location of access into the house. Any questions?
Can I ask you, so you said the house was built in 1924, but you called the current screen porch an addition. Was that added later?
We don't have a specific date of when it was added later, but it does not appear to be original to the house.
And there is nothing like a current existing variance related to that?
We did not find one.
But the house, to be clear, is also inside the setback line.
The entire house is inside the setback, correct?
And the house is, and the lot is only 40 feet wide.
And the lot is only 40 feet wide. It's very, very rare that I've found a 40-foot wide lot that has a house that close. I don't know if I've ever created a 4-foot setback. I've created lots of 5-foot setbacks with 50-foot wide lots. Very rarely have I established a 4-foot setback for someone.
Anyone have any additional questions for Mara? Who's here tonight for docket 2420? Want to come forward, please? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please introduce yourself and then go ahead.
Charles Nye with Lakeside Renovation and Design.
Okay.
Mara covered it pretty well. It's basically that the 4-foot setback would put it right in the front of a window or in the middle of a window. We have that head clearance down through the steps to an existing basement door. Other than that, I think it's about replacing an existing porch. Any questions?
My comment is you're not extending this. It's just going right over
Yes, sir.
replacement of what's already there.
Yes, sir.
And the porch is not being enlarged, it's not being made any deeper.
Correct.
It's just being replaced. And am I to understand that if too many changes to this would, like you said, impact the steps that go in down to the basement access?
On the left
Yeah,
side,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Any other questions for the? Is there anyone else here tonight who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2420?
Sure.
I'm the owner.
Okay,
William Wood.
okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. And you're,
William Wood.
Mr. Hood, okay.
Yeah.
So,
I'm.
so tell us about this porch. Why are you replacing it?
It's dilapidated.
It doesn't, it looks a little sad in the
It is
photo.
very
I wasn't
sad.
Sure, I didn't want to say that.
And I swore to myself the winter just before COVID that I was gonna replace this, and then COVID hit, and then it's continued to get worse. And so that's why we're here tonight.
So it's going to continue to be screens for the upper
Correct.
half? Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Hood? Okay. Anyone else in favor of docket 2420? Anyone opposed to docket 2420? Okay, you can go ahead and sit down. Before we go into executive session, are you wanting to go ahead with a vote tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Could we have a motion for docket 2420 so we can start discussion?
I'll motion that we grant the variance of 3 feet.
A second?
Second.
Well, we have a house that doesn't meet the setback. We have a screened-in porch that doesn't meet the setback, though, as the city attorney pointed out, we can't be sure if that was built, with permits and, when it was built, but it could certainly have been built a number of years ago with, prior to any variance requirement. It's a very narrow lot and I believe that, you know, the replacement of the porch in the same location is probably the best way to go to continue to have access to the basement from the outside.
Yeah, I think the house is just in a peculiar situation. It's already 4 foot into the setback. So that can't be helped by the owner, but it makes for a abnormal situation. And the fact that it is, like has been mentioned, only a 40-foot frontage on this lot.
Now, this is not our purview, Mara, but are there any building code issues that they'll have to be worried about since it's so close to the property line and also the adjacent home?
We will need to make sure to verify the building code issues, but they should be okay. It's more when it's enclosed, since it's the screened porch, they should be fine. And we'll verify that with, it doesn't have to go to Architecture Review Board, it'll go straight for plan review.
I agree with what's been said. It's the exact same size as the existing structure, and moving it inward would mess with the stairs down to the basement as well.
Are we ready for the vote?
I so move.
No,
Call for the
we're ready.
question.
All in favor of docket 2420, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Tom, would you please hold the board?
John Burse,
Aye.
Mel Wilson,
Aye.
Debbie Sahlberg,
Aye.
Tom Walsh, aye.
Your variance has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you very much. Tom, would you please read docket 2421?
Docket 2421, a petition submitted by Timothy Rousseau for an application for variance from section 53.196B of the zoning code of the city of Webster Groves. The applicant is requesting a variance of 2 feet from the maximum 4 feet allowed for a front yard fence in the side street front yard on a corner lot in order to construct approximately 54 linear feet of 6-foot tall fence in the front yard. The property is located at 330 Baker Avenue within the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
Thank you. Mr. Buntrager?
Before testimony, I would ask that exhibits 1 to 7, including the PowerPoint which was used during testimony, be included in the record of this hearing. We would call Mara Perry to testify.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Mara Perry.
Are you employed by the city of Webster Groves?
Yes, I am.
In what capacity?
Director of Planning and Development
What are your duties in that position?
to administer and execute zoning regulations.
Through your work with the city, are you familiar with 330 Baker Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Is this within city limits?
Yes, it is.
In which zoning district is this property located?
The A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
What is the applicant requesting in docket number 2421?
The applicant's requesting a variance of 2 feet from the maximum 4 feet allowed for a front yard fence in the side street front yard on a corner lot in order to construct approximately 54 linear feet of 6-foot tall fence in the front yard.
Which municipal code sections apply to this request?
Code sections 53.196 fence height. On corner lots, no fence in the side street front yard shall exceed 4 feet in height.
Can you describe the existing condition of the property?
Yes, so this particular property that you can see here, house was built in 1923, again, before the zoning codes. The property sits on a corner, and the property is also quite not very deep. The way that the lots were established, I'm going to go back to the aerial photograph. The way the lots were established is 3 of smaller lots were established where it had probably been one larger lot. You can see the larger lot to the south of the 3 smaller lots. But of the 3 smaller lots, this one is a corner. So now it has the established 2 front yard setbacks. In addition, I'll point out that the house to the south sits almost completely back, almost to the behind the lot, this corner lot, because we do have another code section in our zoning ordinance that allows you on corner lots to have fences to a certain distance as long as you're not in front of the neighboring house. But in this case, the neighboring house sits practically behind their entire lot.
And that house also was built in the 20s, probably?
Yes, correct. In fact, it's one of the oldest ones on the block. I believe it's 1910. So in looking at this, you can see in green, the area that is established as the secondary front yard. And as you can see, because of the depth of the lot, it's only 100 feet wide and 50 feet, 100 feet deep and 50 feet wide, which makes it only a 5,000 square foot lot in a zoning district that if you establish new lots need to be a minimum of 7,500 square feet. So in addition to being a substandard size lot, it's also a corner property. So that green area is the area that the fence would have to go down to 4 feet versus being the 6 feet tall. This particular property, the fence, we could not find any documentation of when the fence was built. It appears it's been up for quite a very long time, but we could not find an old fence permit or anything. But at a minimum, it's probably been up for 20 plus years, 25 years, because we do have fence permits going back to 1999. And you can see here, the establishment of the areas where they can build a 6-foot fence are in red. And then the area that is highlighted in green is the area where they would need to go down to 4 foot on that particular corner. Here's some photos that you can see. The photo in the top left-hand corner is essentially looking at the section of the fence that they're asking to be at 6 foot versus 4 foot. The top right-hand corner is again from the outside on the street looking back towards the fence that they're asking to be 6 feet. And then the two lower photos, you can see in the lower left-hand corner, the fence facing the side street that is existing today. And you can see the house next door to the south that sits way farther back behind it. And in the bottom right-hand corner, there is the current fence configuration adjacent to the neighbors of the 6-foot fence that's there. The other fence that's along that back property line is a chain link that's sort of just covered with vines. And I have nothing further unless you have questions.
But are you really familiar with this property, Mara?
I live at the end of the block.
So Yetto is a dead end street, because I was going to ask if the 6-foot fence at this location would have problems for the house on the big lot getting out of their driveway, but there's not enough.
No, there's not enough traffic. It's a dead end street that ends in the railroad. And they do have enough sight distance to get out. The fence will have to be moved in 12 inches to meet the code because it's right up against the sidewalk. So they will move it in 12 inches, which actually keeps it on their property because this fence is just slightly off of the property in the right of way.
The current fence is, I stood right up to it, and parts of it are almost as tall as I am, and of course it goes, so there's been a pretty tall fence there for
At
some
least since
years.
1999.
At least since
Yeah, yeah.
1999.
It's a good run for a fence.
Yeah, it is. Out there whitewashing it every couple of years. Any other questions for Mara before we ask for the petition? Who's here tonight for docket 2421?
Aye.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you are?
Timothy Russo.
So tell us about the need for the fence, for the 6-foot fence at this location.
Well, as Mara said earlier, everything she said is exactly as we stated, but we're looking to make a consistent fence. One side is a shadow cedar box, one side is the chain link fence, and one side is this side. So to make everything consistent, we wanted to match the cedar box or excuse me, the shadow box cedar fence, which of course then led to this. As Mara stated, it's the reason why we're petitioning is for the unique lot size. The idea or the reverse corner lot with the two front yards, and then of course the way that the neighbor on the Yeto side, our neighbor on the Yeto Avenue sits back behind us.
So you just barely have a place to put your car off the street, right?
That's correct.
And it's just one car. Is this a garage as well?
It's just a parking pad.
It's just a parking. And there's only parking on one side of Yeto, right?
Mhm.
Does anyone have any questions for the property owner? Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of docket 2421? Anyone in the Ethernet who'd like to speak? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to docket 2421? Do you want to go ahead with the board at 4 members voting tonight?
Yes.
Okay, you can sit down then, please. Could we have a motion for docket 2421 so we can start discussion?
A motion that we grant the variance of 2 feet in height for the fence within the side yard, front side yard setback.
Second.
No, it is. There's, I'm not sure how unique it is, the fact that when they bought the house, when the house was purchased, they had a fence and they're expecting to, they don't have much opportunity for privacy without a fence. And,
Yeah, I just would say that fence is right. If you walk down that side street, you do. I mean, you can't help but staring into the yard if there's not something there to block your view. And with the small lot and the corner lot, I'd be inclined to say that's a hardship. I think privacy is important and everybody's entitled to it.
Yeah, I think the lot size being under that category and then the neighboring property creates a kind of hardship that would merit this variance.
And there would actually be less fence in the setback. if it
right,
moves in
right,
a
because
foot.
we're moving the fence out of the right of way onto private property.
By 1 foot, right?
Right.
Yep.
Well, but 1 foot can
Make
be
a difference.
a big difference, use of the sidewalk.
Win-win.
Anyone else have any comments before we call the question? All in favor of docket 2421, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Tom, would you please poll the board?
John Burse,
Aye.
Bill Wilson, Debbie Sahlberg,
Aye.
Tom Walsh, aye.
Your variance has been approved. Please see city staff during regular business hours for your next steps. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have a July meeting with at least 2 petitions. And when are you hoping to have that?
I had not even
Okay.
looked at calendars yet. I will probably send something out in the morning to try to make a determination on when I can have 5 members. And if I can figure out how to squeeze that in so that we can get the one other petition on and try to get them both on the same night.
Are
Thank you so
meetings
much.
always on Thursdays or are other days?
We have other days open. It just comes down to whether this room is being used. So we have the problem of every other Wednesday court is in here. Thursdays, 2 of the other 4 Thursdays are Architecture Review Board. And then we also have Plan Commission and Historic Preservation is in the other room, and City Council. So we're trying to work around all of
Right.
those. Now, we could potentially, we haven't done it before, but I think we could, now that we've got the Zoom option, we could potentially do it in the Gordon Room across the way, We could have all of you sit on one side of the table, have the petitioner on the other. I still have that recording capability. It's not great, but it would work if we just had the two petitions on.
We think there'll only be 2 items.
There will definitely only be 2 items. The one that's moving forward from this, tonight's meeting, the 524 Bacon, there's only one other petition that came in. It's for a detached garage that is too close to the property line, that is needing a variance.
I'll be out of town July 11th, but
Well, I'll
I'll let
figure
you
out
know. Yeah.
different, I'll give you a bunch of different potential dates.
Okay, is there any other business before the board?
I move we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You signed all of them, Tom.
I signed them all, boy.